The glass walls of the conference room made me feel like I was in a fishbowl. Everyone could see in, but I couldn't breathe. Serena Val sat across from me, her sharp cheekbones catching the light, her manicured nails tapping on the table. For 14 years, I'd poured my heart into Arya Blake. My sketches had dressed celebrities. My designs had filled red carpets. My hands had built this empire. "Meryl, we're restructuring," Serena said, not meeting my eyes. She was only 31, famous mostly for her Instagram following and family connections. 3 months as creative director, and she was already erasing me. "Your vision is non-transformational. We need youth, risk, shock value." Nobody said the word fired. They called it a transition, a new chapter. They asked me to pack up discreetly, like I was something shameful. I nodded silently, my face a careful mask. No tears, no begging, no scene. As I walked out, I passed the lobby monitor playing a loop of Arya Blake's most iconic designs. The black silk gown worn at last year's Oscars. The structural blazer that changed women's suiting forever. The hand-beaded masterpiece that took 6 months to create. Every single piece was mine. I couldn't sleep that night. At 3 a.m. I checked Arya Blake's website on my phone. My name was already gone. Erased. 14 years of work, and they deleted me with a few keystrokes. Social media posts flooded my feed about Serena's brave new era and visionary direction. There were photos of her posing with the fall collection, the one I'd designed, the one I'd sweated over for months. Her caption read, "My vision finally taking shape." I scrolled through hundreds of comments from fashion insiders, praising her fresh perspective. Nobody mentioned me. Nobody seemed to remember that just last month, they were calling me a genius. I set my phone down with shaking hands. I'd never played the political game, never hired a publicist, never fought to have my name in lights. I just designed, created, let my work speak for itself. But now the work was speaking with someone else's voice. I designed in the shadows for so long that when they pushed me fully into darkness, nobody noticed I was gone. The worst part wasn't losing my job, it was realizing I'd already been a ghost. My phone rang at midnight. It was Jamie, a junior designer I'd mentored since she was an intern. "Meryl?" Her voice was a whisper. "It's awful here. Serena tore down all the mood boards yesterday. She said your aesthetic was for old women who've given up." I closed my eyes, picturing the studio where I'd spent more hours than in my own apartment. "She's bringing in influencers to consult on design," Jamie continued. "Yesterday she yelled at Marcus for suggesting we the signature tailoring. She said we need to shock Gen Z or die trying." "What about the fall samples?" I asked. "Pieces I'd spent months perfecting." "Scrapped. She's rushing a new concept." Jamie's voice cracked. "People are quitting. 3 designers left yesterday. Nobody's brave enough to stand up to her." "I'm sorry," I said softly. "Please come back," she begged. "Talk to the board. You built this place." I looked around my apartment at 14 years of sketches and memories. "It's not my war anymore, Jamie." The next morning I pulled out my portfolio, years of sketches, swatches, and photographs. The evolution of Arya Blake, my evolution. I carefully separated my personal designs from company property. My fingers lingered on the sketches for my final collection, the one Serena was now calling her vision. I made a copy and held it over a small metal trash can. Then I struck a match. I watched the flame catch the corner, curling the paper into ash. It felt final. Cleansing. But at the last second, I saved one design from the fire. The centerpiece gown. My masterpiece. Some things you can't let go. As I was boxing up my supplies, the doorbell rang. A courier with an envelope. Inside was a severance agreement and a non-disclosure form. They were paying me to disappear quietly, to never tell anyone that Serena Val was parading around in my creative skin. I signed it without reading the details. Money wasn't the point. The point was that 14 years of loyalty meant nothing when someone younger, louder, and more connected wanted your chair. New York Fashion Week arrived with a storm of publicity. Serena's debut collection for Arya Blake was the most anticipated show of the season. I watched the live stream alone in my apartment, sipping tea from a chipped mug. The runway lights dimmed, music pounded, models emerged wearing chaos, garments with random cutouts, mismatched patterns fighting for attention, accessories that looked painful to wear. The live stream chat exploded. "What am I looking at? Is this a joke? Did a 5-year-old design this?" Critics were brutal. confused, trying too hard, a spectacular miscalculation of what Gen Z wants. One famous reviewer tweeted, "Arya Blake used to whisper luxury, now it screams for relevance." Another wrote, "Not a collection, a midlife crisis on fabric." The camera caught Serena's face as she took her bow. Her smile was frozen, eyes darting nervously. She knew. I closed my laptop, feeling strangely hollow. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt sad. 14 years of careful brand building, demolished in 15 minutes. "She's not a designer," one critic posted. "She's an algorithm in heels." 1 month after Fashion Week, I visited Arya Blake's website again. They were removing history. Season by season, my collections were vanishing from the archives. Where my name once appeared in credits, it now simply read, "The Team." I was being erased, pixel by pixel. Out of curiosity, I visited the flagship store on Fifth Avenue. It was nearly empty. Sale signs hung on racks of Serena's disastrous collection. A saleswoman approached me, not recognizing the person who had designed every garment she'd sold for years. "Those are from the previous designer," she whispered when I touched one of my dresses. "The classic era. We barely have any left." I nodded, running my fingers along the seam I'd personally specified, the precise stitching I'd fought for. At home, I opened a dusty sketchbook from my first year, each page dated, signed, a record, proof that I existed, that I created, that once I belonged somewhere. I traced the faded pencil lines with my fingertip, remembering who I was before Arya Blake. Before I became someone else's shadow. Maybe it was time to find that person again. Before leaving New York, I visited the flagship showroom one last time. I'd heard rumors it might close, another casualty of Serena's vision. The guard recognized me and let me in after hours. The space was eerily silent. No music, no chatter, just mannequins wearing the last of my designs, like ghosts of a forgotten era. I walked slowly through the display room, remembering. This is where we dressed the First Lady. This corner held the collection that won Designer of the Year. Here I taught interns how to properly pin a hem. I ran my fingers over seams I once sewed, fabrics I selected, silhouettes born from my mind. "Goodbye," I whispered to the empty room. 14 years deserved a proper farewell. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Meryl? It's Kate from design school. Remember me? I started something small with my sister, a label called August Thread. I saw what happened at Arya Blake. Are you still designing? I have something to propose." I stared at the message for a long moment. Maybe endings were just mislabeled beginnings. Milbrook was nothing like New York. No honking taxis, no towering skyscrapers, no fashion elite judging your shoes. I rented a small cottage with a garden out back. For the first time in 14 years, I slept past 6 a.m. I planted tomatoes, painted watercolors, sketched birds instead of dresses. The locals had no idea who I was. To them, I was just the quiet new woman who read books in the cafe window. The barista, a college girl named Zoe, complimented my scarf one morning. "Did you make this?" she asked, admiring the delicate pattern. I nodded. "Just something I put together." "It's beautiful," she said. "You should sell these." I smiled and changed the subject. I wasn't ready to be known yet. That night, I found myself sketching a dress design. The first since I'd left Arya Blake. It flowed from my pencil effortlessly. No deadlines, no marketing team to please, just pure creation. On impulse, I scanned it and emailed it to Kate at August Thread. No message, no signature, just the sketch. Then I went back to gardening, expecting nothing. 2 months later, my phone exploded with notifications. August Thread had launched a new capsule collection, and it was trending on TikTok. Videos showed young women twirling in dresses that looked strangely familiar. My design. They'd used my sketch as the centerpiece. The comments were glowing, aesthetic but meaningful. "Old Hollywood meets Gen Z. Take my money now." Fashion blogs picked it up. August Thread breaks internet with mystery collection. Who designed this perfection? The next big thing in indie fashion. I watched it all unfold from the quiet of my garden, smiling secretly. The validation felt pure. No politics, no name recognition. Just my work, standing on its own merits. That evening, an email arrived from Kate. "We know this was you, Meryl. That design could only come from one person. It's selling out everywhere. Please, work with us officially. We don't care if your name is attached or not. We just need your genius." I stared at the screen for a long time. They didn't want my name or my fame. They just wanted my hands. For the first time in months, I felt my creative spark flare bright. "I'll design for you under one condition," I told Kate over the phone. "I remain anonymous. I work under an alias." "Whatever you want," Kate agreed immediately. "What should we call you?" I thought for a moment. "Elowen." "Elowen," she repeated. "I like it. It sounds mysterious." Within days, a contract arrived. No press obligations, no public appearances, just design work, fairly compensated. I signed immediately. That night, I sketched until sunrise, a mini line of 12 pieces. Everything Arya Blake wasn't anymore: refined, thoughtful, bold without being desperate. Clothes that made women feel powerful rather than painfully on trend. I shipped the sketches to Portland the next day. 2 weeks later, samples arrived at my cottage. Seeing my designs brought to life again felt like reuniting with old friends. While I worked, fashion podcasts began speculating about August Thread's miraculous rise. "Their new designer has changed everything," one host said. "But who is Elowen? Nobody in the industry has ever heard this name." I smiled as I watered my tomatoes. That was exactly the point. In the shadows, I could create without interference, without politics, without having to be anything but a pair of hands and a vision. Meanwhile, Serena Val was spiraling. After her Fashion Week disaster, she didn't retreat or reflect. She doubled down. Industry blogs reported she'd hired 3 major influencers with zero design experience to collaborate. Leaked photos showed chaotic planning sessions with mood boards full of random trends. Then came the Zero Thread campaign. Garments without finished hems, raw edges everywhere, pieces deliberately falling apart. "Deconstruction as luxury," Serena called it in a desperate interview. Critics were merciless. "Arya Blake has forgotten what clothes are for." "This isn't avant-garde, it's amateur hour. The emperor's new clothes, literally." Sales plummeted further. Wholesale accounts canceled orders. The stock price dropped weekly. Serena blamed everyone but herself. "The market doesn't understand innovation," she told Women's Wear Daily. "Sometimes you have to lose the old to find the new." I watched from afar, feeling a strange mix of sadness and inevitability. Brands aren't just logos and marketing. They're souls, identities. You can't just swap out the heart and expect the body to function. A Vogue editor's tweet summed it up perfectly. "Arya Blake is dying in slow motion, and nobody's brave enough to call the time of death." August Thread was invited to show at Paris Market Week, almost unheard of for a small indie label. The mysterious Elowen collection was the reason. Kate called me, breathless with excitement. "Buyers from Neiman Marcus want to meet the designer." "What should I tell them?" "Tell them Elowen prefers to let the work speak for itself," I replied. The fashion world was buzzing with theories. Was Elowen a famous designer working undercover? A collective of seamstresses? An AI program? After the show, 3 major design houses contacted my old email, offering consulting positions. They'd figured out who Elowen might be. I declined every offer politely. I wasn't ready to step back into the spotlight. In anonymity, I'd found freedom. My designs were being judged purely on their merit, not on my connection to Arya Blake or industry politics. Later that week, a fashion student posted on Instagram, "Is it just me, or does Elowen's work remind anyone else of early Arya Blake?" That same timeless quality. The comment section exploded with agreement. The whispers were beginning. Soon they would become a conversation. Then a shout. But for now, I was content to remain a whisper. Serena's downfall accelerated with a leaked video. Someone from her team recorded her during a late-night design session, ranting about legacy designers. "They're all fossils and fantasies," she slurred, clearly intoxicated. "Old women clinging to their needle and thread like it's 1950. Fashion isn't about craftsmanship anymore, it's about noise." The video spread like wildfire. Industry veterans who had stayed neutral now turned against her. Former employees began sharing horror stories anonymously online. #Arya Blake deserves better trended for 3 days. The company's stock dropped 18% in a single day. Then came the final blow. Arya Blake herself, the reclusive founder who'd retired years ago, broke her silence with a single statement to Women's Wear Daily. "Fashion evolves, but craftsmanship endures. Legacy matters. Quality matters. This was always the foundation of my house." The message was clear without naming names. Arya Blake was dismantling itself by forgetting what built it. I read the statement twice, feeling a wave of validation. Arya remembered me, even if no one else did. The empire Serena had so desperately wanted was crumbling in her hands. In Milbrook, I started teaching. It began with Zoe, the barista who'd admired my scarf. She wanted to learn to sew. Then came Harper, a single mom who dreamed of designing children's clothes. Then Maya, a college student studying textiles. We met in the sunroom of my cottage. I taught them what 14 years at the top of fashion had taught me. Proper draping, pattern making, the importance of a perfect seam. August Thread quietly funded our little workshop, sending fabrics and equipment. Call it research and development, Kate insisted when I protested. We worked without pressure or deadlines, just the joy of creation. My students flourished, their natural talents emerging under proper guidance. One evening, Maya took a photo of our workspace, fabric swatches, sketches, cups of tea, and posted it to her design school account with the caption, "Learning from the best, LON Studio." The post went viral overnight. Design students, fashion bloggers, and industry insiders all shared it, speculating wildly. LON's secret atelier revealed. The mystery designer is mentoring the next generation. I should have been alarmed by the attention. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Pride. Not in myself, but in what we were building together. Something authentic in a world of filters and fakery. Paris Fashion Week arrived. Arya Blake's show was scheduled in a prime slot, testament to the brand's former glory rather than its current state. I watched the live stream with my students. We gathered around my laptop as Serena's make-or-break collection walked the runway. It was a desperate hodgepodge, feminist slogans plastered on poorly constructed garments. Unwearable tech accessories that did nothing. Colors fighting each other for attention. The camera panned to the audience. Blank faces, raised eyebrows. A few people checking their phones, bored. The worst response wasn't criticism. It was indifference. After the show, no buyers approached backstage, no orders followed. An influencer who'd been paid to attend canceled at the last minute, posting from a different show instead. Paparazzi caught Serena crying in a service corridor. The photos spread with the cruel hashtag #FashionFail. That evening, Arya Blake's board released a statement. We thank Serena Val for her contributions. Moving forward, she will be repositioned as a brand consultant while we search for new creative leadership. Corporate speak for fired, but we're letting her save face. My students looked at me, waiting for a reaction. I simply closed my laptop. That, I said quietly, is why you must always respect the craft. By spring, LON was fashion's favorite mystery. A popular podcast launched a 3-part series titled Fashion's Golden Ghost, investigating who might be behind August Thread's meteoric rise. They interviewed everyone from my former colleagues to design school professors. Reddit threads analyzed my sketches, comparing them to my Arya Blake work. The consensus was building, but there was no smoking gun. I still hadn't confirmed or denied anything publicly. I let the speculation swirl while I focused on teaching and creating. Then came the call that changed everything. August Thread was nominated for Emerging Label of the Year at the CFDA Awards, fashion's equivalent of the Oscars. You have to be there, Kate insisted. If we win, someone needs to accept. Send the production team, I argued. The sewers, the pattern makers, the real hands behind it all. Meryl, Kate said softly, it's time. The industry took something from you. Here's your chance to take it back. That evening, Maya, my youngest student, looked at me with earnest eyes. My mom always says, don't hide what they stole. It only helps the thief. I stared at my reflection in the studio mirror. Maybe the girl was right. The award ceremony would be held in Paris. I hadn't been back since leaving Arya Blake. I can't go, I told Kate on the phone. Everyone will be there, fashion editors, photographers, former colleagues, Serena. Exactly, Kate replied. Let them see you. Let them remember. Fear and doubt paralyzed me. I'd grown comfortable in my anonymity, safe in the shadows. The thought of standing in the spotlight again made my chest tight. What if they don't care? I whispered. What if I go and it changes nothing? Then at least you'll know you had the courage to show up, Kate said. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled out the one design I'd saved from burning, my final masterpiece for Arya Blake. The piece Serena had claimed as her vision. I traced the lines with my finger, remembering the pride I'd felt creating it. The joy, the purpose. They hadn't just taken my job, they'd taken my voice. The next morning, I booked my flight to Paris. First-class ticket, No alias. It was time to speak for myself. The Petit Palais glowed with thousands of lights. Fashion royalty lined the red carpet. Designers, editors, celebrities, influencers. I stood in the shadows, watching. My black dress was simple but impeccable. No designer label, just perfect tailoring. My own hands had sewn every stitch. "Ms. Monroe?" A young assistant found me. "August Thread is seated front row. They're expecting you." I nodded, took a deep breath, and stepped into the light. Heads turned as I walked the carpet. Whispers spread like ripples. "Is that Marilyn Monroe? The Arya Blake designer?" I thought she'd disappeared. I kept my eyes forward, spine straight. Cameras flashed. I didn't smile or pose. I simply walked, dignified and focused. Inside, I found Kate and her sister. They hugged me with genuine warmth. Across the room, I spotted several former Arya Blake employees. They raised their glasses subtly in my direction. The ceremony began. August Thread's category came midway through the evening, and the award for Emerging Label of the Year goes to August Thread. Applause thundered. Kate squeezed my hand as we walked to the stage. At the microphone, she spoke first. "This award belongs to our entire team, but especially to our design director, who many of you know as Elowen. Her real name is Marilyn Monroe." A hush fell over the crowd. All eyes turned to me. The silence was deafening as I stepped to the microphone. Faces stared up at me, some shocked, some smiling, some calculating the implications. "Thank you," I began, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. "I've been in this industry for nearly 20 years. For 14 of those years, I designed collections that dressed royalty, walked red carpets, and built a legacy brand." I paused, letting the reference to Arya Blake hang in the air. When that chapter ended, I thought my story was over. I believed I only mattered if someone else approved of me, if my name appeared in the right magazines or my designs carried the right label. The audience was completely still. I could see fashion editors furiously taking notes. But I discovered something important in silence. My work mattered most when no one was watching, when no one was chasing trends or approval, when it was just my hands, my heart, and fabric. My eyes swept the room, landing briefly on a few former colleagues. To every designer who feels invisible, your hands build this industry. Your vision matters. Create with love, especially when no one's looking. As I stepped back, the room erupted, a standing ovation that seemed to go on forever. Later, Vogue posted a clip with the caption, "The real soul of fashion has spoken." Serena Val's fall was swift and total. The morning after my speech, Arya Blake's board announced her complete removal from the company. Creative differences was the official reason. Her sponsored posts dried up. Brands distanced themselves. Her manager dropped her. Fashion Week invitations disappeared. She started posting design tutorials on TikTok from her apartment, trying to rebrand as a fashion educator. The videos were awkward, her expertise questionable. Comment sections filled with questions about me instead. "Why did you fire Marilyn Monroe? Were you jealous of her talent? Did you know you were destroying the brand?" Viewer counts dwindled to double digits. The algorithm abandoned her just as quickly as the industry had. I didn't celebrate her downfall. I didn't comment when journalists asked for my reaction. What would be the point? Success was my only necessary response. August Thread was fielding orders from major retailers. My students were starting their own small labels. I was designing again with joy and purpose. I thought about reaching out to Serena once, perhaps offering some word of encouragement. But what could I say? The truth was harsh. She'd wanted my throne without mastering the craft that built it. That was the lesson she needed to learn on her own. 3 months after the awards, a courier delivered a small package to my Milbrook cottage. The return address simply read, AB. Inside was a velvet box containing a delicate silver necklace, a small thimble pendant on a fine chain. I recognized it immediately. It was from Arya Blake's very first collection. I designed it as a tribute to the seamstresses who made fashion possible. A handwritten note accompanied it. "Meryl, thank you for everything. You were the house, Arya." My eyes filled with tears. After all these years, all the collections, all the success, the founder had recognized who truly built her legacy. I fastened the necklace around my neck, then placed the note in my studio window, a quiet reminder that truth eventually surfaces, even in an industry built on illusion. Later that week, Women's Wear Daily ran an article announcing Arya Blake's retrospective collection, featuring designs from what they now officially called the Monroe era. I smiled at the irony. My name had never appeared in their credits when I actually worked there. Now it was the selling point they hoped would save them. Sometimes vindication comes in unexpected packages. Summer brought new beginnings. Harper, the single mom I'd been teaching, received a full scholarship to Parsons School of Design. Maya launched a sustainable capsule collection that sold out in 2 days. Zoe was hired as a junior designer at a respected label. I watched them bloom with quiet pride. This was legacy. Not just creating beautiful things, but teaching others to create with integrity and purpose. August Thread had grown so popular that Kate suggested I take a step back from day-to-day designing. Be our creative director, she proposed. Guide the vision, mentor the team. Let some of your students take larger roles. I agreed immediately. Evolution was necessary. The next generation needed space to create their own vision. In my reduced role, I had time for new projects. I designed a line of sustainable basics for working women. I consulted for an ethical fabric manufacturer. I taught masterclasses at design schools. One morning, an unexpected email arrived from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The subject line read, Met Gala 2023, Invisible Hands Exhibit, Request for Participation. They wanted to feature my work, both from Arya Blake and August Thread, in next year's Costume Institute exhibition. The theme, the unseen forces that shape fashion. How perfectly, beautifully fitting. Across town in a sparsely furnished apartment, Serena Val watched my acceptance speech for the 47th time. The room around her was quiet, undecorated. Bills and past due notices scattered across the coffee table. She paused the video on my face as I said, create with love, especially when no one's looking. With a sigh, she opened her sketchbook. Page after page of attempts, trying to find her authentic voice as a designer. Nothing felt right. Nothing sang. Each drawing was an echo of someone else's vision. She checked her phone. Her Instagram account, once followed by millions, hadn't been updated in 4 months. Her last post had 3 comments. One read, "You had it all, and lost the thread." She tried sketching again, a dress, a jacket. Nothing worked. In frustration, she threw her pencil across the room. Then she did something she'd never done before. She picked up her phone and searched how to properly construct a garment. Maybe she thought, I've been doing this backward all along. Maybe I need to learn the rules before I break them. On her screen, a beginner's sewing tutorial played. She watched with the concentration of someone finally realizing how much they didn't know. It was a start. A documentary crew set up equipment in my studio. They were filming Threads, the Hidden Hands of Fashion, a feature exploring the untold stories of the industry. Can you tell us about Serena Val? The director asked. How did it feel watching her destroy what you built? I shook my head firmly. I'm not interested in discussing that chapter. This was never about revenge. It was about the hands, the work. Instead, I showed them what mattered, the craft itself. How a proper seam should lie, how fabric should move with the body, how a well-made garment can last generations. They filmed my students working, Harper draping fabric on a dress form, Maya sketching a new sustainable collection, Zoe manipulating patterns on a computer. This is my legacy, I told the camera. Not what I created, but who I taught to create. Later that week, news broke that Serena had applied to teach a design fundamentals course at a small fashion school. They'd rejected her application, citing insufficient technical knowledge. I felt a surprising twinge of sympathy. Learning humility was a harsh but necessary lesson in an industry built on ego. Perhaps someday she would find her authentic voice, just not at the expense of others. The Met Gala arrived on a perfect May evening. Instead of a dramatic gown, I chose to wear a precisely tailored black tuxedo, a statement of strength and simplicity. Walking the famous steps, I felt calm. Cameras flashed, reporters called my name. This time, I smiled and waved, comfortable in my skin. Inside, the exhibition dedicated an entire room to my work. The Monroe Vision. Read the plaque at the entrance. Gowns I'd designed for Arya Blake stood beside my newer creations for August Thread. Most meaningful was a display of the tools of our trade, thimbles, scissors, measuring tapes, alongside quotes from the seamstresses, pattern makers, and sample sewers who brought designs to life. Young designers lined up to meet me. They didn't ask about scandals or drama. They asked about technique, process, craft. What advice would you give someone starting out? A fashion student asked earnestly. Remember that trends fade, I replied, but quality endures. And success isn't measured by your name on a label, but by whether your work speaks truth when you're not in the room to explain it. As the night continued, I slipped away from the crowds. My work would speak for itself. It always had. Somewhere across the world, a teenage girl sketched something in a notebook labeled Elowen. The thread continues.